What is ruthless consistency, and how can it make you a better leader? Why should we jettison strategic planning and pursue strategic management? I'll explore these questions and so much more with our very special guest, Dr. Michael Canic, author of Ruthless Consistency: How Committed Leaders Execute Strategy, Implement Change, and Build Organizations That Win. Michael, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
What prompted you to write Ruthless Consistency, and what do you mean?
Well, in a word, failure. Seeing the ongoing failure rate of strategic change initiatives. The companies have good intentions, good ideas, good plans, but the execution is the hard part. And the research has shown that in the past 40 years, roughly, failure rates for these major initiatives continue to be around 60 to 70%. So given that's the reality, and my world has been developing and executing strategy with companies over the past 20 years, I really wanted to pass on some of the things that I have found have been very successful in implementing strategic change.
As a follow-up, being consistent sounds simple. Why isn't it? And taken too far, doesn't consistency mean being inflexible? Where is there room for creativity and innovation if you're ruthlessly consistent?
Right. Well, to your first point, it does sound simple, just be consistent. What makes it difficult, of course, is that as a leader, you're on stage 24/7, and people are reading meaning into everything you say, everything you do, everything you don't say, you don't do. You're on stage, so you've got to be very careful. Am I sending consistent messages? Because people will pick up on the inconsistencies in a heartbeat. Now, when you ask, doesn't it mean could it mean being inflexible? Well, by ruthless consistency, I don't mean robotic repetition. This isn't about mindless and mechanical activity just for the sake of being consistent. What I'm really talking about is a ruthless consistency of purpose, one that's constantly projected in your decisions, your actions, because it's the relentless alignment of decisions, actions, and intentions that really is the foundation of success. So let me give you an example. Let's say you want to build a culture of innovation, for example. Okay. Well, how does innovation, how does that align with the idea of consistency? Well, a ruthless consistency of purpose means everything we do needs to support a culture of innovation. So that means how we, communicate to people, how we train them, what resources we give them, what we measure, the goals we set. And we want to create an environment where everything points them towards innovation. And to be successful, frankly, innovation isn't counter to ruthless consistency. It's really a requirement in today's business. To achieve your purpose, you can't be static. You've got to evolve. You've got to grow. You've got to try new things. You've got to experiment. Innovation and creativity is part of how you achieve that consistency of purpose. So again, it's not about robotic repetition. It's really about, making sure that everything we do, as creative and innovative as that might be, is consistently aligned with your purpose, your intentions.
So Michael, why should leaders embrace strategic management and forego strategic planning? And what do you mean by strategic management, and how is it a more comprehensive and far more robust approach to developing and sustaining focus for a leader?
Yes, that's a very good question. And I can tell you from my experience years ago, I ran the consulting division of the Atlanta Consulting Group, and we would do strategic planning for companies. So typically mid-market companies, we would go in, lead them through this strategic exercise. A plan would be developed. Their team would be all amped up, ready to go conquer the world. We'd ride off into the sunset, mission accomplished. They would invite us back next year and say, help us with our plan, this year. And we would, of course, ask, okay, what got accomplished last year? Well, that's when the wringing of the hands started, the shuffling of the feet, and people would look aside. Well, we kind of got busy and this and that. Well, the reality is not a lot got done. And when I got into the research, what I found is that that's not uncommon. That's the reality of strategic planning. Most strategic planning initiatives fail. The figures are something like 70 to 90% of strategic planning initiatives fail to deliver on their promise. So, of course, the question is why? And I think the number one reason is we treat strategy as an event, not a process. We think of strategic planning as an event. We put the focus on the word planning. And planning does what? It develops a plan. Or we think of the plan, the document. It's not about developing a plan. It's about getting results. So that's when I developed what I call the strategic management process, which treats strategy as an ongoing process. It's not an event, it's ongoing. It's a process. It has to be managed. It's not going to implement itself. And when the strategic management process is the overarching process for your organization, mapped to the fiscal year, and that includes, from the front end assessment and development of the plan, but the mechanisms to make sure that we execute what needs to get done, that's a much more robust approach to, sustaining focus. So really it's about a process, not an event. And I tell my clients, Michael, I say, don't even say the word strategic planning, because when you say that, what do you think of? The planning, right? Say strategic management. Exactly. Say strategic management, and you're going to think, how do we manage our business strategically to achieve what we need to achieve?
So, Michael, you point out, it's very practical, some of the insights you offer in your book. Saying that everything needs to be consistently aligned is one thing, but doing it is another. To be ruthlessly consistent, 3 things must be done, you point out. And what are those 3 things that must be done?
Right. So the 3 things to be ruthlessly consistent is that leaders need to develop the right focus, create the right environment, and build the right team. And every strategic change initiative, Michael, I have seen, I have led, I have read about, I have come across, it always comes down to those 3 things. Have we developed the right focus? Have we created the right environment so that people can execute on it? And have we built the right team? And what makes it tough is that it takes all 3. If we have the right focus and the right team, but we put them in the wrong environment, well, we demotivate those good people. If we have the right focus and right environment, but with the wrong team, they can't get it done. And if we have the right team in the right environment, but with the wrong focus, well, they do a great job going in the wrong direction. So it takes all 3. We have to develop the right focus, create the right environment, build the right team, and the model of ruthless consistency really is focused on those 3 things. And then when leaders have the right commitment to fuel it, now we can be successful. Now we can get things done.
In your book, Ruthless Consistency, you reference the cult of leadership. My show, we focus on leadership and in particular, how to enhance government leadership. So I was particularly interested in this aspect of your book. If there's one thing you could sear into the minds of our listeners about leadership, what would that be?
It would be that it's not about you, it's through you. It's not about you, it's through you. Get over yourself as a leader. I think it was John Maxwell who said, if you think you're leading but no one's following, you're really just going for a walk. So it's not about you. And too often, leaders can be forgiven for thinking it's about them. Because again, there are a lot of books on leadership, what great leaders have done, what you need to do. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do. It's got to be about your people. They're the ones who are implementing the change. They're doing the real work. They're executing the strategy. It's not the CEO who's running around and doing the details of everything. It's his or her people. So if there's one thing, again, I'd sear into your mind as a leader, it's not about you, it's only through you. And if you can get over your ego and realize you're just the enabler of all this, your role is to create the environment, to build the team, and to develop the focus so that team then can go ahead and win.
Excellent insight, Michael. I found it very provocative and very important. What drives an organization to change, and what are the 2 fundamental drivers of change?
Right. So if you look at, when organizations are successful or not successful, often the successful organizations have a strong vision or ambition. So they're very motivated towards achievement. But then in most cases, what prompts change is pain. Something very painful is happening. We're losing market share. We have losing key customers. The global pandemic, that we're experiencing right now. Pain is a great motivator. And what I found is that most companies historically have focused on the gain side, and they'll come up with a vision statement. They'll come up with a big audacious goal, but then nothing happens. Why? Because that vision or that goal is a nice to do. It wasn't a must do. What I've found is much more reliable in predicting change is if organizations develop both that pain statement and the gain statement. It's the pairing of the 2. Here's the pain we're going to suffer if we don't change, and here's the gain we're going to benefit if we do change. And so by pairing those 2 fundamental drivers together, that ends up producing a much more compelling case for change. And I tell you, that really provides the impetus that that sustains the change effort, across the year.
Michael, we are in the midst of a pandemic response, and how important is ruthless consistency for leaders during today's crisis?
Yeah, and this is very important. Having that ruthless consistency of purpose is even more important now. And you have to be even more painstaking in being consistent. Why? Because people are anxious. Your people are confused, right? They're not sure what's going to happen. None of us know what's going to happen. So it's especially important you're consistent in communicating with your people. And the term I like to use, Michael, is to over-communicate during times of change or over-communicate during times of crisis. Because people need to know, not just where are we going, not just how, but why. Why are we changing to this? What does it mean for me? How are we going to support you? We need to be ruthlessly consistent in valuing people and making sure they know we appreciate them. They're playing a valuable role, right? They belong. They're doing something that's meaningful. It's especially important we're consistent in valuing people now. And it's especially important that we're consistent in providing people with the tools and the information to do the job. Because the anxiety is people's roles have had to shift. Maybe they're doing some things, they have to do some different things than before. Maybe some of the things they used to do have gone away. So we've got to make sure we're very consistent in providing people whatever tools and information they need given the new reality. So in times of change, Michael, ruthless consistency is even more important because if you don't do that, you risk demotivating people who are already anxious, already confused, and then you end up with a very bad situation.
So Michael, what is the first thing a leader can do to become ruthlessly consistent?
Well, look in the mirror. Be honest with yourself, and ask yourself, how committed am I to winning? Am I willing to do what it takes to win? Because I'll tell you, one of the things I learned in coaching, Michael, and this is an old coaching adage, there is a big difference between the will to win and the will to do what it takes to win. And you'd better understand that difference. Everybody wants to win. They want to say they want to be a part of a winner. Are they willing to do what it takes? And often that means doing what you don't want to do or don't like to do, but knowing that you must do if you're going to be successful. So as a first step, I just say with leaders, be very honest with yourself. There's no right or wrong answer. Start with an honest assessment. How committed am I to winning?
This has been a special edition of the Business of Government Hour, a conversation with authors with Dr. Michael Canic, author of Ruthless Consistency, How Committed Leaders Execute Strategy, Implement Change, and Build Organizations That Win. Subscribe, download, and listen to the entire interview at Podcast One, iTunes, or on your favorite podcast app, and as always at businessofgovernment.org.